you talked a little bit about is Christianity able to offer hope to the kind of suffering and evil that we experience? But I'm just wondering if it specifically has anything to say about the natural evil that you talked about in the beginning. So that's like the natural disasters or diseases and viruses that we sometimes experience.
Yeah. I have a couple of remarks I can make, and then Claire can just bring it home. I think, the Bible has a ton to say about creation. Like, God is very much for matter, as C.S. Lewis would say. He invented it, right? And so it's beautiful. Like, God, I don't know how many of your listeners have read Genesis 1 and 2, but you should read it afresh. Like, God is presented, as Tim Mackey would say, as this royal artist who's just loves creation, and it's beautiful and it's in harmony and there's so much goodness, and it's made in such a way that it's conducive to not only human flourishing, but the planet's flourishing. It's just amazing. God is this gardener. Even Jesus says his father's a gardener. And so I think that when we're looking at some of the natural disasters that happen and viruses and so on, it just confirms for me what Paul the Apostle writes in his letter to the Romans, that all of creation is groaning, is longing for the manifestation of the children of God. And so what sort of hope do we have? Well, at the beginning of the biblical narrative, we see this harmonious environment where both the physical and the spiritual are in perfect harmony with God and with human beings. At the end of the biblical narrative, we see the same thing. So the Bible begins with a perfect garden, a perfect planet, a flourishing planet, and ends with that same vision for all of creation. This Edenic city, the city of Eden, at the very end. So my hope is that as we continue living our lives, and at the end of time, that yes, God will finish restoring and redeeming the world in the same way that he rose Jesus from the dead. That something that's really horrific has happened, but God has used that for good and brought new life out of it. And that's how I kind of see it. And this is just an interesting anecdote. I didn't become a Christian until I was 21. I was an opiates addict, and I was doing all sorts of like nonsense things with my life. And I didn't realize how deep this change was in terms of my own view of environmentalism until like a few years later. So normally if I was walking around doing my thing, I would go and like litter or whatever. You couldn't make me. Like, I don't care that you care about the environment. Like, who are you to me? And I'm going to be dead in 50 years or whatever, so I don't care. I didn't realize this, but after my conversion to Christianity, I started picking up trash. I didn't know that. I didn't even realize that until I was having this conversation with somebody. And then I remember, so after I had this conversation with somebody, I remember thinking to myself, why did I do that? And at the beginning stages of that, I remember the Psalms. And they say, the earth is the Lord's and everything therein. And I felt like I couldn't disrespect God's creation. So the view of creation that Christians have, I think, is very, very high, because God's view of creation is very, very high, and God is going to restore his creation because he is so for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to say this is a very small point. When we talk about natural evil, natural disasters, to put the word natural and evil together is a little bit of a contradiction, in that to say something is evil, you're attaching a moral value to it. You're saying that this is wrong, but if you're saying it's natural, then it's just the flow of creation, the flow of humanity, stuff like that. So again, when we see things, disasters in the world, and we say, this is the natural disaster, or this is evil, or why has this happened? We're asking for justice yet again. Yeah. We're invoking the idea that this is wrong and needs to be answered.
So obviously we're not saying that you can't be a climate activist or take care of the world and the earth without being a Christian. But I do think that there is this innate desire in humans to take care of the earth, Christian or non-Christian. And from a Christian perspective, I would say that is because we're made in God's image, and God cares about the world, as you said,
Yeah.
also. And God wants his world to flourish. So when natural disasters happen, we can, like you said, sense that there's something wrong with that. There's something, there's something broken about the world that would happen, and we desire a perfect world. And like you said, we as Christians believe that we will be in that perfect restored world someday, and that natural disasters won't happen because God will have restored creation.